Committee of the whole Senate, the chairman shall leave the chair to report progress. Mr. President, I like to draw your attention and the attention of my colleagues to an interview that was granted by the minority leader of the Senate, my friend, Senator Oyinaya Abaribe, which interview was aired last night on Channel station. Mr. President, in that interview, the Senate minority leader spoke extensively about the events that transpired during the consideration and passage of the PIB, which is now PIA. Mr. President, most specifically, a remark he made to the effect that prior to the consideration of the bill, there was an agreement of the entire Senate that the host communities be given 5%. But notwithstanding that agreement, the APC as a party took a party position to reduce the 5% for the host communities to 3%. Mr. President, I am the Deputy Senate President of the Senate, but I also represent Delta Central Senatorial District for the Niger Delta region. And Mr. President, there are many communities in my district that are host communities based on the provisions of the PIA. Mr. President, there never was a time that I am aware of that the APC as a political party, the caucus of the APC as a political party, here in the Senate and or outside the Senate, met and took a decision that the host members, the people of the host community of Niger Delta be shortchanged by reducing the host community host contribution from 5% to 3%. Mr. President, I have received several telephone calls since last night after this interview was aired. Mr. President, a decision was taken by the Senate. That bill has since been passed into law with a caveat that for those of us who are dissatisfied, an opportunity will be given to us as we move on to have this act amended. An amendment was brought recently, and we expect, Mr. President, that other amendments will be brought to cure some of these issues that we faced. But Mr. President, I feel very, very offended, and I believe all members of the APC in the Senate equally feel very, very offended and feel that their privilege has been breached. Because I know that decision, there were also senators from PDP, very many of them from the Niger Delta, who also voted, who supported the 5%, and we all fought on this floor for 5% until the majority decision, and that is what democracy is all about, until the majority took a decision here that it should be 3%. But it was not partisan, it was not a PDP position, neither was it an APC position as canvassed yesterday by Senator Abaribe. And I thought I should bring this to the attention of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity.
Thank you, the DSP. Distinguished colleagues, the minority leader is not here. And let me make my comments on this. First of all, this Senate, as far as I can remember, never voted along party lines, not even the 52 sub 3, because we had majority of APC voting, and even 2 senators, I think, from the PDP side voted along a line that appeared to be the one that carried the day. So, as politicians, ours is to lobby, is to engage our colleagues each time there's an issue that we feel very strongly interested, an issue that we feel can make life better for those that we represent. If you are not able to get what you campaign for, there will always be another day. And that is the spirit, that because we passed the 3% does not mean that at another point, another time, that the situation may not change. It depends on how people talk to each other. But when the Senate comes to a decision, we should be at the forefront of informing the public properly, because it is our duty more than anybody else's to give the correct information to the public. Having said this, this is one chamber. Even if it is one senator that stands for something, and that senator loses the vote, that senator must never lose hope of getting the remaining senators to see the issue through his eyes the next day. So I will encourage us to talk less to the press on ways that will give the press the wrong impression, and concentrate more on talking to our colleagues in the Senate when we want to sway the opinion of senators to support our position. I would have loved to give the minority leader an opportunity to say something, but I'm sure that this is a matter of privilege, and all of us would have learned from it. There is no reason for us to give the wrong information, because it doesn't help. We never voted along partisan lines. I can't imagine the Deputy Senate President or Senator Degi voting for 3%, for example. But even those senators from the other parts of the country, in so many occasions, voted for some positions that will ameliorate the sufferings of the people of the Niger Delta particularly. And I recall that we did that in the House for NDDC, for offshore-onshore dichotomy bill, which became an act, and so on and so forth. Because we believe that there must be equity, there must be care and concern for all parts of Nigeria, especially those people who inhabit those areas where the crude, the oil and gas are explored and exploited. So DSP have taken note of this privilege, and I hope that we are all guided. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, distinguished Senator Emmanuel Boacha, Taraba South.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues, I rise on the strength of Order 43, the Senate Standing Rules. May I crave the indulgence of Mr. President to read that by the indulgence...
Which order is that? Go ahead.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate. Order. Mr. President, recall I had approached you in respect of this matter. May I have your permission to present the matter in question? Yes.
You may proceed.
Distinguished colleagues, the matter in question does not actually require debate, but prayers and a last-minute respect for a fallen hero who served meritoriously in the Nigerian Air Force. A gentleman par excellence and an elder statesman in his own right, Mr. President. The person I'm referring to is late Air Commodore Ibrahim Kefas, retired, who passed onto eternity on the 1st of October, the day we are celebrating independence. Ibrahim Kefas was born into a Christian family on the 27th January 1948 in Nukari, the headquarters of the legendary Kwaradafa Kingdom in Taraba State. He was the oldest of many children born to a Christian missionary, Atawuno Anju Kefas, Manu. His father, Manu, was one of the missionaries to introduce Christianity in the region. Being a devout Christian, he positioned Ibrahim Kefas for a missionary work, who joined the Bible College at the age of 13, hoping he would become a preacher. However, being the youngest student in the college at that time, Kefas, after completion with his classmate, had his own plan. The plan of being a pilot. He had great flair for being a pilot at a tender age. He was fascinated by planes and wanted to fly them, so he joined the Nigerian Defense Academy and became a pilot when he was 20 years old. With hard work and dedication to duty, he rose through the rank to become an Air Commodore before he retired from the military service and joined politics eventually. During his course of stay, he served as a military officer, one as a military administrator, which is the equivalent of a governor in Cross River State, between December 1993 and September 1994, and later served as military administrator in Delta State until 1996 during the military regime of General Sani Abacha. As a politician, Air Commodore Ibrahim Kefas served as the Taraba State chairman of the People's Democratic Party in 2001. Late Kefas was nominated as gubernatorial candidate in Taraba State under the political platform of National Democratic Party, NDP, in 2003. He later returned to the PDP to mentor and groom some other politicians as an elder statesman. Kefas died in the early hours of 1st October 2021 in the hospital in Abuja. May the Lord God comfort the family. My prayer, Mr. President, is for these hallowed chambers to pray with the family, and it pleases the chair to observe a minute's silence for the soul and in respect of Air Commodore Ibrahim Kefas. I so submit, Mr. President.
1 minute silence. May the soul of late Air Commodore Ibrahim Kefas rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari on the Federal University of Transport Daura Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Transport Daura Establishment Bill 2021, SB 799, first reading.
Federal University of Transport Daura Establishment Bill 2021, SB 799, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Obasani on the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, Cap A18, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Arbitration and Conciliation Act, Cap A18, LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2021, SB 808, first reading.
Arbitration and Conciliation Act, Cap A18, LFN 2004, Amendment Bill 2021, SB 808, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Abdullahi Adamu on the Federal University of Food Sciences, KEFI, Nasarawa Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Food Sciences, KEFI, Nasarawa State Establishment Bill 2021, SB 818, first reading.
Federal University of Food Sciences, KEFI, Nasarawa State Establishment Bill 2021, SB 818, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Teslim Folari on the Nigerian Institute of Management Act number 14, 2003, Amendment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigeria Institute of Management Act number 14, 2003, Amendment Bill 2021, SB 822, first reading.
Nigeria Institute of Management Act number 14, 2003, Amendment Bill 2021, SB 822, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Muhammad Adamu Alero on Public-Private Partnership Establishment Bill 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Public-Private Partnership Establishment Bill 2021, SB 823, first reading.
Public-Private Partnership Establishment Bill 2021, SB 823, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name that the Senate and the House of Representatives do sit in a joint session to receive an address by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, on Thursday, 7th October 2021 at 2 p.m. on 2022 Appropriation Bill. Mr. President, with your permission, I hereby move that the Senate and the House of Representatives do sit in a joint session to receive an address by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, on Thursday, 7th October 2021 on the 2022 Appropriation Bill. I so move.
Leader, Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate and the House of Reps do meet at a joint session on Thursday, the 7th October 2021 to receive the 2022 appropriation bill from Mr. President I so second at 2 p.m. prompt.
At what? No, it's 12 hours. I read it. In the letter it's 12 hours, 12 noon. So it's not 2 p.m. Yeah, in the order paper they wrote 2 p.m. It's wrong, it's 12 hours, 12 noon.
Mr. President, thank you very much for the correction. It is from the order paper we had gotten the 2 p.m. But however, since you have corrected us, it should now stand at 12 noon. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate and the House of Representatives do sit in a joint session to receive an address by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, on Thursday, 7th October 2021 at 12 hours, 12 noon, on the 2022 appropriation bill, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. So, distinguished colleagues, tomorrow we sit from 10 up to 11:30. We go to the next, to the House of Representatives chamber and take our seats by 11:30. The President will be in the chamber at 12 noon exactly. So we start as early as possible tomorrow so that we're able to take the votes and proceedings and possibly other items on our order paper. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief for the confirmation of the nomination of Engineer Farouk A. Ahmed for appointment as the Chief Executive Officer of the Board of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, in accordance with provision of Section 34, Subsection 3 of the Petroleum Industry Act 2001, as a replacement for Engineer Seriki Awolu, earlier forwarded. Mr. President, distinguished senators, for the purpose of this motion on the order paper, it is for the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the confirmation, the request of Mr. President be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative actions. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President C&C on the confirmation of the nomination of Engineer Farouk A. Ahmed for appointment as Chief Executive Officer of the Board of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The request of Mr. President C&C is hereby referred to Committee on Downstream Petroleum for further legislative action to report back within a week. Chairman, the Vice Chairman is here. Your Chairman is not here, so you have 1 week. Yes, please. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief for the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf for appointment as the Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, in accordance with Section 256, Subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. I therefore, Mr. President, distinguished senators, for purpose of this motion on the order paper, it requests of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief for the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf for appointment as the Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that this be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC on the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Justice Hussaini Baba Yusuf for appointment as Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The request of Mr. President CNC is hereby referred to the committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters to report back within a week. Chairman, is 1 week enough? Okay, you report back within 1 week. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Petroleum Resources upstream on the screening of the following persons as listed on the order paper for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive and Executive Commissioners of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. And they are as follows. Number 1, Isa Ibrahim Modibo, Chairman. Number 2, Engineer Benga Komolafe, Chief Executive. Number 3, Hassan Gambo, Executive Commissioner of Finance and Accounts. Number 4, Ms. Rose C. Ndong, Executive Commissioner Exploration and Acreage Management. Distinguished senators will recall that the request of Mr. President Commander-in-Chief was referred to the committee on Wednesday, 22nd September 2021. Mr. President, we wish to invite distinguished Senator Albert Basi Akpan, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Leader, before I call the Chairman Petroleum Upstream, what happened to the report from the committee on downstream? Because they were referred the same day for the regulatory board authority.
The earlier one referred to the committee on the same day was rescinded, was not acted upon because the person that was recommended, there was change, it was effected.
Only one person was changed. No, but have they screened? Chairman, what happened?
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a substitution for the chief executive, and it was read on the floor, but it has not been referred to the committee for screening.
No, what I'm asking is, have you screened the others? Oh, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, so you want to present all at the same time? Okay. Distinguished Senator Albert Basi Akpan, Akwa Ibom Northeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleague, Senator Albert Basi Akpan, Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, I rise to move that this Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream on the confirmation of the nominations of the following persons for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Executive Commissioners of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. They are as follows, Mr. President. Isa Ibrahim Modibo as Chairman. Engineer Benga Komolafe as Chief Executive Officer. Malam Hassan Gambo as Executive Commissioner of Finance and Account. Ms. Rose C. Ndong as Executive Commissioner Exploration and Acreage Management. Mr. President, I so move.
Distinguished colleagues, I want someone to second it. Distinguished Senator Smart Ademi.
Mr. President, I rise to support the report and the motion moved by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Upstream, distinguished Senator Ababasi. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, you may lead the report, please. Yeah, you may present the report.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I still remain Senator Albert Bassi Akpan, Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, this is the report of the Senate Committee on Upstream Petroleum Resources on the confirmation of nomination for appointment by Mr. President of the Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Executive Commissioners of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the Senate at its plenary sitting on Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for the confirmation of nominations of Mr. Ibrahim Modibo, Engineer Benga Komolafe, Hassan Gambo, and Ms. Rosie Ndong for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Executive Commissioners, respectively, of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, and refer same to the Committee of Upstream Petroleum Resources for further legislative actions. It is pertinent to note that these appointments were made pursuant to Section 11 Sub 2 and Sub 3 of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, while Subsection 2 provides for the constitution of the board. Sub 3 empowers our dear President to appoint members of the board subject to the confirmation of the Senate. After this referral, Mr. President, the committee requested and received the curriculum vitae and other supporting documents of nominees and invited them to appear before it for screening exercise accordingly. Screening of nominees. The CV of the chairman, Isa Ibrahim Modibo, as stated in paragraph 3.1. The CV and the details of Engineer Benga Komolafe, the Chief Executive Officer, are equally as stated in paragraph 3.2. Equally, the CV and detailed information on Executive Commissioner in charge of Finance and Administration, Malam Hassan Gambo, is equally as stated in paragraph 3.3, Mr. President. And finally, the CV and detailed information of Ms. Rosie Ndong, as the Executive Commissioner under this commission, is also as stated in paragraph 3.4, Mr. President, Mr. Colleagues. The nominees demonstrated sufficient knowledge of the workings of the petroleum industry, especially the upstream petroleum sector, and a firm grasp of issues which to the economics of the petroleum exploration and production. They answered questions effectively relating to the petroleum exploration management and the challenges facing the sector. Our observations and findings, Mr. President. The committee, after the screening itself, deliberated on the nominees' suitability for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, and Executive Commissioner of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, and hereby makes the following observations. That the appointment of the nominees satisfy the requirements of Section 11 and Section 18, Sub 1 to 5 of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. That the nominees possesses the requisite qualifications, leadership qualities and competencies, and comportment to discharge the statutory duties and functions of the offices of Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, and Executive Commissioners of the Commission. That there are no adverse reports against the nominees, as record checks and other forms of investigations by the security agencies did not reveal any negative trace against them. That there is no petition before the committee against the nominations of any of the nominees. That the committee is satisfied about their qualifications, experiences, suitability, competencies, and integrity to assume the position of Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Executive Commissioners of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, and that the nominees are fit and proper persons for the appointment to the position so nominated by Mr. President. The Senate Committee on Petroleum Upstream, having screened and scrutinized the CVs and other accompanying documents of the nominees, recommend thus, Mr. President, that this Senate do approve the confirmation of Isa Ibrahim Modibo, Engineer Benga Komolafe, Hassan Gambo, and Ms. Rosie Ndong for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, and Executive Commissioners respectively of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. The committee recommends that the Senate of the Federal Government of Nigeria do approve its recommendations accordingly. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream wish to express a sincere and profound appreciation to the President of the Senate, His Excellency, distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawrence, the leadership of the Senate, and our distinguished colleagues for giving us this opportunity and privilege to be of service at this time in our nation's history. I so move, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Comments? Any comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion that this distinguished Senate resolve into the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I ask to second the motion that the Senate resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate now resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, any that is silent. Distinguished colleagues, we do approval will the Senate approve the nomination of Isa Ibrahim Modibo as Chairman of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Engineer Benga Komolafe as Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Hassan Gambo as Executive Commissioner, Finance and Accounts of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Will the Senate approve the nomination of Ms. Ross C. Indong as Executive Commissioner, Exploration and Acreage Management of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion that the chair reports progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do revert to plenary to report progress. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary for the chair to report progress say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream on the screening of Mr. President's nominees for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive and Executive Commissioners of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission and approved the nominations of Isa Ibrahim Modibo, Chairman, Engineer Benga Komalafe, Chief Executive, Hassan Gambo, Executive Commissioner, Finance and Accounts, Ms. Rose C. Indong, Executive Commissioner, Exploration and Acreage Management. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Confirmation. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Isa Ibrahim Modibo as Chairman of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Isa Ibrahim Modibo is hereby confirmed as Chairman of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination? Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Engineer Benga Komalafe as Chief Executive of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Engineer Benga Komalafe is hereby confirmed as Chief Executive of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Hassan Gambo as Executive Commissioner, Finance and Accounts of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Hassan Gambo is hereby confirmed as Executive Commissioner, Finance and Accounts of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ms. Ross C. Indong as Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Ms. Rose C. Indong as Executive Commissioner, Exploration and Acreage Management of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Ms. Rose C. Indong is hereby confirmed as Executive Commissioner, Exploration and Acreage Management of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Congratulations to all of them, and let me say here that this regulatory commission has the enormous and huge responsibility of setting and establishing the commission as provided in the Petroleum Industry Act. They have this unenviable responsibility of ensuring that they commit themselves, they work hard to provide a very solid foundation, steady and stable foundation for that matter, that they don't waste any time, because time is of essence. The petroleum industry will go through a reform process, and the process has already started. And this commission is one of the huge arms of those reforms that will stabilize the petroleum industry in Nigeria. While the Senate confirms them, we expect nothing less but commitment and patriotism on their side. The Senate wishes them the best of luck and a very fruitful tenure when they are appointed by Mr. President and take their offices. We expect that the other regulatory authority for downstream and midstream would also be confirmed as soon as possible, so that they also start their work immediately. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committees on Finance on the 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework as revised by the executive and represented to the distinguished Senate yesterday. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Solomon Olamilekong Adiola to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the report.
Distinguished Senator Solomon Adiola Olamilekong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, may I move that this Senate do receive the revised 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Mr. President, I so move.
I need a seconder. Where is Barrow? Barrow second.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin Abubakar. I stand to second the motion ably moved by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Finance. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Finance on the 2022-2024 medium-term fiscal framework, say aye. Those against, say nay. Mr. Chairman, please lay the report.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, the report on the revised 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. The Senate at its sitting on Tuesday the 5th October 2021 consider the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation on the revised 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper and reverse save to the committee for further legislative action. 2.2 is the background. 3.0 are the key changes in the fiscal term resulting from the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 and implication on the 2022 medium-term expenditure framework. Dear colleagues, I will only explain the import of the implication of the Petroleum Industry Act on the medium-term expenditure framework that was earlier passed by this distinguished Senate. Mr. President, areas in the Petroleum Industry Act that was passed and assented to by the President that have effect on the medium-term expenditure framework, because it is expected by July of 2022, the commencement, that is the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, will begin. Mr. President, first in line on one of these impacts is royalties. Mr. President, the Petroleum Industry Bill that was passed by this Senate in the fiscal terms have the royalty percentage reduced. For instance, the royalties that are payable at a rate of 20% have since been reduced to 15% on offshore areas, and that of 15% have been reduced to 12.5% for shallow waters and 7.5% for deep shore, for deep offshore. All of these have an adverse effect on the revenue that comes from the oil and gas. Also, in the area of cost, with major issues related to tax. Before now, the petroleum profit tax is at a rate of 85%, but with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, that rate has since reduced to a maximum of 60%, with 30% associated with the hydrocarbon tax and the remaining balance of 30% relating to the company income tax. Also, on profit oil and dividend, the profit oil and dividend have also since been reduced drastically. For instance, for the period under commencement of this particular act, the maximum profit oil and dividend that can accrue to us as a nation is not more than 25 billion naira. This was as a result of the liberalization of both the upstream and the downstream sector as a result of passage of the Petroleum Industry Act. Other areas such as subsidy, which falls under the administration and the federal project, is also affected drastically, because we are working towards a regime that there will be no longer payment of subsidy. So we're in the transition period, and by the time in 2023 and 2024, when we will have full implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, then we can start looking at a situation whereby the issue of subsidy payment is no longer mandatory to the government. All these are some of the impact that the passage of Petroleum Industry Act have on the medium-term expenditure framework. If you look into from page 4, 5, 6, there are some table there that shows in numerical terms the actual effect in numerical terms as it affects the medium-term expenditure framework. But at the end of the day, the three main issues that necessitated this action, and also for the government to start preparing for PIA, that is the Petroleum Industry Act, include: one, that have an adverse effect on the Federation account. The gross revenue projection decreased by 341.57 billion, that is from 8.87 trillion to 8.528 trillion. Two, the deduction for federally funded upstream project costs and 30% derivation equally decreased by 335.3 billion and 810.25 million respectively. And if you net off both the gross revenue decrease and the deduction from the federally funded upstream cost and the 13% derivation, the net oil and gas revenue projection declined by 5.42 billion from 6.50 trillion to 6.535 trillion. And that portion of this 5.42 trillion that belongs to the federal government, using the sharing formula of 48.26, accrued to about 2.6 billion naira. So the net oil and gas revenue projection decline for the federal government, for the FGN, is 2.6 billion naira. Still under the findings and observation, the FGN retained revenue. The retained revenue is projected to increase by 1.77 trillion, that is from 8.36 trillion to 10.13 trillion, inclusive of the GOEs, largely which was based on, that is how we came about the 1.77 trillion which the revenue will increase with, which include 1, the share of oil revenue which as earlier mentioned, which is the shortfall as a result of the PIA, 2, which is about 2.6 billion naira. Also dividend accrued, which in the past has not been recognized in the budget of the federal government, that is the dividend from the LLNG and also the dividend from the Bank of Industry has been brought into the books, and that together put together accrued for the sum of 11,686,123,950. The share of oil price royalty in the new PIA that was passed, royalty is divided into two: the royalty that are associated with production and royalty that are associated with the price. And from that alone, the government will realize a total sum of 96,943,894,289, while the revenue from the GOEs, during the consideration of the earlier MTEF report, we found out that out of the 60 GOEs, only 50% of them, as at the time of consideration, uploaded their budget to the Ministry of Budget and Economic National Planning. And as at the time we are wrapping and presenting reports here, the rest of this agency, because there was a matching order that any agencies that refuse to upload his budget and present his budget to the budget office will not be given any budgetary allocation. So there was a rush. So by the time we are presenting our report, don't forget that the earlier report, the earlier MTEF passed previous year was for 2021-2023, and this one was for 2022-2024. So the budget office used the report of the previous years to abridge for those agencies that were not submitted. So by the time those agencies now submitted their report, we have a new income of about 873,753,134,495, while the total independent revenue comes to about 726,973,133,263, and that represents 80% operational surplus for all agencies of the government that are partly funded and that are self-funded. The operating surplus that you see there, which is in negative form, is the net off of the budget of the GOEs minus their expenditure that gave us that 204,636,548,099 which represent, as I've said earlier on, 80% of which is captured in the independent revenue. The grant and donors also equally increased by 1,138,822,106. For the first time prior to now, the fund that is being given to TED fund is always in the memorandum line within the document. It's not contained in the federal government budget. And now that the National Assembly have insisted that everything must be brought to the table, for the first time we have amount to be given to TED fund coming into the budget of the federal government, and that amounted to 305,998 million naira. And all of this put together accrued for the sum of 1,773 billion naira. Now, we also observe that at the end of the day, there is an additional FGN expenditure, this is a typographical error, of 2.41 trillion naira. That is, from the 13.98 trillion earlier passed by this National Assembly, this 2.41 trillion will be added to the 13.98 that was passed to now the new figure to give us 16.39 trillion naira. And the breakdown of how this fund will be applied include: one, under the FGN expenditure, we have the number one, the statutory transfer, with the sum of 115, which is increased by a total of 154.9 billion. The breakdown of which include INEC for the 2023 general election, 100 billion, NASENI, and if you the last time the finance minister was here, NASENI in their act, they have this provision which is 1% FGN share of the federation account, which was not provided for initially. This was provided for now, and that amounted to 54 billion naira, and that fall under the statutory transfer. While the Human Rights Commission got about 580 billion, Universal Basic Education UBEC got 241.3 million, and Basic Health Fund also got 126.6 million naira. Under the recurrent expenditure, the GOEs overhead, don't forget that the GOEs, if they have a targeted revenue of about 500 billion, there is need for them to have some corresponding expenditure to achieve this revenue. So to that extent, the recurrent expenditure grew by 189.7 billion naira. An additional provision was made to the service-wide vote to take care of some critical areas of the government, and that amounted to about 510 billion naira to cater for the national poverty reduction and growth strategy, that is 300 billion. The police operation fund, that is 50 billion. The hazard allowance for health workers also accounted for 50 billion naira. The public service wage adjustment, the additional, also accrued for 80 billion. The MDA's electricity bill debt additional also accrued for 37 billion. The personnel cost, in case there is need for adjustment of the government wages and salaries, a total sum of 25.2 billion was also provided for out of the 2.41 trillion naira. Also, the MDA's overhead, a provision of about 5.7 billion naira was provided, and the reduction on the GOE personnel, because we found out that along the line there were reduction that was made earlier on by the budget office from the GOE's salaries, the salaries. So they felt that that might be against the law establishing this agency, and the fund might not be enough to take care of their personnel costs, and as such a provision of about 132.3 billion was provided for. The third fund recurrent, as I have said earlier on, that represents 5% of total amount that accrues to them as revenue. That is 5% of the 305 billion I earlier mentioned as revenue accruing to third fund, which is about 15.3 billion naira. The provision for capital expenditure is projected to increase by 1.7 trillion, that is from 3.62 trillion to about 5.33 trillion. The increase is attributed to the projected increase in one, the capital supplementation by 131.8 billion, the GOE's capital 222.1 billion, the third fund expenditure, that is 390.7 billion. If you add the 15.3 billion plus 290.7, it gives you about 305 billion earlier mentioned as revenue accruing to third fund. The multilateral and the bilateral project tied loans, that accounted to about 517.5 billion, while the MDA capital expenditure is 370.1 billion. That is, the capital expenditure of the MDAs grew by 370.1 billion. Provision for population and housing census to be carried out in 2022. As I've said earlier on,
the government never thought of made any provision in their earlier MTEF, and as such, they have introduced it now, amounting to about 178.1 billion naira. The federal government share of the oil royalty price, that is the 96.9 billion earlier mentioned in the revenue, this, according to the PIA passed by the National Assembly, will be transferred to the National Subject Investment Authority every financial year, and for this year that amounted to about 96.9 billion naira. Aggregate expenditure, as I've said earlier on, that the aggregate expenditure including the GOEs and the project tied loan is projected to increase from 13.98 trillion to 16.39 trillion. Breakdown as earlier mentioned. The deficit and the deficit financing. The aggregate deficit inclusive of the GOEs and the project tied loan is projected to increase by 635.4 billion or 3.39 of the GDP from 30.05 of the GDP, out of which the sum of 118 billion is from borrowing or both from external and internal loan. What that simply means is that earlier on I said the total revenue that we're able to gather is 1.773 trillion, and I said the expenditure of the government is increasing by 2.41 trillion. If you look at the difference, the resultant difference is the deficit, which amounted to the 635.4 billion naira. And this 635.4 billion naira, the financing is in two forms. The element of which will be added to the earlier 4.89 trillion passed as borrowing for the government is just the sum of 118 million naira. Out of these 635 billion, government will only borrow 118 billion naira, while the sum of the 517 billion is will be taken care of by the multilateral and bilateral project tied loan. So it is there are two different categories, but the total sum of deficit recorded is 635.4 billion, which still fall under the threshold of about 3.39%. The budget office of the Federation leveraged the Senate and the House Committee on Finance recommendation that all revenue generating agencies must remit their revenue to the consolidated revenue fund, or they will not be captured in 2022 budget. As I've said earlier on, for the first time, the MDAs prior to now, the total revenue that was passed in the earlier MTEF was 172 billion naira, but no revenue estimate, there will be no budget. Within 2 weeks, that revenue projection grew from 172 billion to 637 billion, with an addition of almost 400 billion from all the MDAs without necessarily inflating their budget. These are budgets submitted willingly by this MDA to the federal government as to what they are bringing into the budget this year as their own contribution to the revenue to fund the 2022 budget. Recommendation. The committee recommends as follows: that the aggregate expenditure of 16.39 trillion be approved. 2. That the retained revenue of 10.3 trillion be approved. 3. That the fiscal deficit of 635.4 billion be approved. And I think that will be one, but the budget office of Federation and the Federal Ministry of Finance and National Planning be commended for insisting that the MDA submit their revenue profile as premise for being captured in the 2022 budget proposal. Mr. President, very distinguished colleague, I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation as always. Any comments, Senator Utazi?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Chukwuka Utazi, and I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. Mr. President, this is a climax of our stay here. This presentation coming by this two of a kind here, you know,
The presentation was done by Senator Solomon Diola Olamileko, not two of a kind.
Mr. President, this is very, very important that we have tomorrow our president will be addressing a joint committee, a joint sitting of both chambers tomorrow to do a very, very important assignment that touches on the life and prosperity of this country, especially at this material time that we have so many challenges facing this country. So we have waited. He has done his presentation before, but when the executive did their last executive council, it becomes important that we have to look at what he did initially. And I thank him that even yesterday, when it was read, that he has to work, his committee worked tirelessly to come up with something of importance like this. And I can only but say, join and say that I work in the committee you constituted to look at the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal paper. During the break, we listened to people there and we made our inputs. And it is at the background of that committee activity and report that he is working on this, helping to make sure that we move forward. Mr. President, while we are coming for this, and I have to say it, and I have to say it with all the seriousness it demands, that the time of oil is over. It's gone and gone for good. That we have now to start looking at non-oil revenues to fund our budgets, to make sure that the people who are complaining that Mr. President will always write letters to come to Senate here or National Assembly for approvals, we stop doing that. It is only when the people that are the MDAs that are supposed to work are doing their job seriously and bringing the revenues, that will only be the time Mr. President will stop writing. And that will be the only time we will also stop approving. Not until when that is done, we are going nowhere. So we really have to work very hard. And having said that, Mr. President, I also want to say that with the unbundling of NMPC, with the passage of PIA, has brought a lot of, is going to bring a lot of transparency and accountability from NMPC and free resources we wanted to make sure that we have enough to fund our budgets internally without going outside to fund anything. It's very, very important. And in saying so, Mr. President, I also want to say, in order to do it, to make sure, because we have moved a step forward in the PIA passage, I'm also of the opinion, in order to free and get more resources for the country, that...
you try to round up.
President, that while we are looking at the amendment of the PIA, we also have to look at the issue of Department of Petroleum Resources. As a regulatory body in the industry, it cannot be under NMPC in order to be effective. We must look at that with all the seriousness in order to have the courage to do the needful for this country. Having said that, Mr. Hausa, and I also want to go, that in order to make sure that the job we did during the break on the MTEF, on the medium-term extension, is not just got lost on us, that we have to put an ad hoc investigative committee of serious-minded senators here to look at the revenue releasing from the heads from the, especially the non-oil revenue, like mining. We have to put such committee to go beyond just the committees to look into this improperly, to make sure that they become responsible and get things done. Having said that, Mr. President, I want to support this and ask that we pass this report here, we consider it and get it done with, so that Mr. President will come and do his annual ritual tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. I think we need to correct an impression. The Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, by the time, after this confirmation, by the time they take office, the Department of Petroleum Resources simply cease to exist. So there won't be DPR. So all the functions of the DPR that it performs today will be transferred to the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. So we have gone beyond that, and I want us to just be brief, please, so that we don't take too much time. Senator Betty Apiafi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Betty Apiafi. I represent Rivers West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I have listened carefully to the presentation by my colleague, and I want to say that I think increasing the budget is pushing our luck too far. It makes the budget size too much for us to handle. Putting into consideration the fact that the budget of this year, we are just about implementing the capital budget because of scarcity of funds. I think that the budget is overambitious. But I want to also point out that there are certain agreements that I can see from this paper. It says it was agreed by the Budget Office and Office of the Budget Office of the Federation with NMPC that in implementing the Petroleum Industry Act, one, under recovery would be extinct and frontier exploration will be of the federally funded projects by mid-2022. Can we put an amount to that? Because one of the biggest challenges we have that distorts our funding of budget is under recovery. And there is no amount put in the funds for under recovery. So it means NMPC has all the amount they can use for under recovery. I thought under recovery should have been pegged to a particular amount, because no matter how much we get in terms of revenue, and we are really struggling in terms of revenue, under recovery can wipe that out. Then I also want to, and then of course, what happens to those who do this misappropriation? There's no sanction for people who break the budget, the Appropriation Act. And I want to quickly look at the aggregate, the federal the revenue we're expecting. We are expecting revenue from sources like a share of oil share of oil revenue, which is not very stable as it is. Then I want to talk about that of LLNG. So, President, in these chambers, LLNG has been given a tax exempt in building the Bori-Bodo Road. I wonder whether that was taken into consideration when we are giving LLNG 3.3 billion revenue, and which is part of what is making us have an increase in revenue. And of course, Bank of Industry is having 8.3 billion as revenue. I don't know what Bank of Industry revenue was like last financial year, but we should be giving them that much, considering what is happening in the banking industry today. Then finally, I want to say that the money that we are appropriating for INEC, is that the entire budget for INEC, the 100 billion, or is it part of the appropriation for INEC? We need to know that. Then I think that the 510 billion we are putting in service-wise vote is outrageous. And we need to have a breakdown, because this is additional. I don't know what was put. I wasn't here when we did the MTEF. I don't know what is there originally. But if we are putting 510 as additional to service-wide vote, I think that is outrageous.
Thank you very much. Senator Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, please permit me to commend the Committee on Finance for the expeditious consideration and submission of the report in respect of this revised MTEF, and to equally commend the Executive Arm of Government for being able to observe the fact that the PIA will bring a change in our budget, and so decided to bring forward this revised MTEF bill so as to factor in those changes that are expected in the year 2022. Having said so, let me add that it's equally commendable, because the GOE budget, the budget of the GOEs that were captured initially were that of last year. And so building a budget with assumptions that are not realistic or that are not well informed is not what is expected in a good budgetary process. And I have a small observation. My observation is this: is on the recurrent expenditure. Yes, the Minister of Finance is doing a wonderful job by looking at the books of the GOEs. Our Committee on Finance is also doing a tremendous and wonderful oversight in respect of these very, very important issues. And a lot of progress have been made. But my worry here, and I know, and I will also call on these two bodies, the Committee on Finance and the Minister of Finance and National Planning, to continue to do more. But what is shown here in respect of the GOS overhead is that we are going to have an increase of 89 billion GOS overhead. And this is what we are talking about day in, day out, that we need to reduce our overhead. It's very, very important. But in this revised report, GOEs are going to enjoy more than 89 billion. And again, there's a reduction in the personnel of the GOEs to the tune of 132 billion. So I think the important thing to do here, I am not objecting to these two figures, but there should be more oversight to make sure that these figures are well oversighted, so that there won't be waste in this respect. And I also want to commend the idea of bringing on board the TED fund budget into our budget. It gives a holistic view of the expenditures by federal government. Ab initio is left out, and what TED fund is doing is not brought to fore in respect to what we are doing in our educational system. So I think this is a very good initiative, and I also want to add, in response to what my sister MTEF said, the project of this year is being well implemented. There have been releases, or even though there are some concerns, some projections are not well funded, but the Minister of Finance has assured us that it's going to look at all those issues and get everything corrected. So, but the implementation is on board, and the Finance Ministry is doing very well. Last year, the performance was unprecedented. We have never had 100% budget performance like last year. And the Minister of Finance also doing very well to replicate what he did last year. So I think we need to commend Minister of Finance, because we have never had it so good like what is happening now. I so submit.
Senator Abiodun Olujumi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Let me first of all congratulate the Finance Committee for a job well done. This document is very explicit, even though I still have a few challenges. But Mr. President, for the first time, we know that the problem with Nigeria and the leakages in our finances is due to the inability of MDAs to come forward and do the needful. But for the onerous work of the committee, of which I am a member, to call every MDA to come and give account and tell them they will not get into the next budgetary system before they came up and told Nigerians that they had excess of almost 500 billion that they were hiding from the people. It means that the civil service needs to we need to look into the civil service thoroughly as an investigative committee and continue what we have done to bring such monies onto the table. The issue of TED fund is another. Now that TED fund is in the budget, everyone can see what every other person is doing. However, Mr. President, I have a few challenges. One of them is about our deficit and our borrowing. With what we have done now, we will have a deficit of almost 6-point-something trillion. And that's heavy for us. I believe there is a need for an ad hoc committee to sit together and look at how we can reduce this drastically. Because poverty is biting hard in the country. We cannot look away from the fact that these borrowings are injuring us. And with this huge deficit, that we will also have so much to do to be able to balance our sheets. With that, I want to commend the chairman once again, and thank you for...
Let's go to the recommendations. Recommendation 1, on page 12. Recommendations are on page 12. Recommendation 1, that the aggregate expenditure of 16.39 trillion be approved. Those in favor of recommendation 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 2, that the retained revenue of 10.3 trillion be approved. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 3, that the fiscal deficit of 635.4 billion naira be approved. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And recommendation 4, that the Budget Office of the Federation and the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning be commended for insisting that MDS submit their revenue profile as premise for being captured in the 2022 budget proposal. Where is this coming from? Chairman. No, it's okay. I understand very well. I would have thought that your committee should also be commended, because you might have pushed the Ministry of Finance to do those things that they have done to bring out 400 billion plus. So we commend, of course. So those who this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me join all my colleagues who spoke, who contributed in this debate on the reviewed MTEF FSP. First of all, our Committee on Finance has been doing very wonderfully well, very professional, and I will urge you to continue to be as dogged as you have been. I'm sure that those MDS that vomited 400 billion could possibly have vomited 1 trillion naira if we had pushed harder. So we need to push harder, because what this means is a revelation that many of these MDS have been cornering funds that ordinarily should have gone to the treasury, but for many years they have been taking the funds unfairly and illegally. So we should not be content with only 400 billion naira. It's a good thing that it happened, because that is an exposure, a disclosure of what they have been doing. But we must insist that it goes beyond the 400 billion naira. I'm sure we can get even more than 1 trillion. I agree that we need more and more revenues, like Senator Chukwuka Utazi said, so that we're able to fund our budget with less and less deficit. But we can only achieve that if the executive and the legislature work hard to ensure that the revenue generating and collecting agencies perform their jobs very well and remit the funds to the treasury. Secondly, I also agree that the deficit or the borrowing is a bit high, but then again the choice is limited, because on one breath we cannot say that we will not borrow because it's becoming too much, when we don't have ways and means of funding infrastructure development in the country. And we cannot say we should just fold our arms and not do anything, because the country will never move. So it's a catch-22 situation. I believe that we need to be very mindful that we need to reduce the borrowing, but that means we have to improve on the revenue that we receive. I believe that the additional revenues that have not been captured, like the TED fund Bank of Industry and so on, were before just left out of the federal budget. Now we can see everything, and we need to see more. I want to thank you most sincerely for very wonderful and very professional job that your committee has done. Thank you very much. And of course, the Senate is ready for us to receive Mr. President tomorrow. Now that we have passed the revised MTEF, I'm sure the federal, the executive arm of government will take cognizance of what to approve this afternoon. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the second reading of the Disaster and Relief Management Council of Nigeria Establishment, etc. Bill 2021. Distinguished colleagues will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 7th July 2020. Mr. President, this bill is sponsored by distinguished Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar, who has sought the assistance of distinguished Senator Bello Mandia to move the motion on his behalf. I therefore invite Mr. President to invite distinguished Senator Bello Mandia to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Bello Mandia, Katsina South.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm leading the debate on the Disaster and Risk Management Council bill. As you all have heard, the bill is being sponsored by Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar Para North. So I'm leading the debate on his behalf. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I take the liberty to lead the debate on a bill for an act to establish the Disaster and Risk Management Council of Nigeria to serve as a regulatory body for persons seeking to be members of the council, to as well determine the standards of knowledge and skills to be attained by persons seeking to become disaster and risk managers, to make provision for continuous training and development of members to ensure professionalism and promote corporate governance values. This bill was read the first time in the Senate on Tuesday, 7th July 2020. The bill is proposed to make the Disaster and Risk Management Council a body to acquire all recognitions, benefits, technical support needed to make it effective in provision of capacity building services for members in Nigeria and the rest of the world. The bill seeks to, among other things, to regulate the practice of disaster risk management in Nigeria, to determine from time to time the standard of knowledge and skill to attained by persons seeking to promote a disaster risk manager, to regulate the training of disaster risk manager in all institutions in Nigeria and give periodic accreditation to training institutions, to access, examine, register, and license prospective local and foreign graduates of disaster risk management who had met their requirements and had satisfied the Institute of Council, provide and maintain separate register for disaster risk management in Nigeria, and to determine the scale of charges and service rendered by members of the profession in public and private services. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the enactment of this bill into law does not have any cost implication on the government. The Council has been in existence for many years now and will perpetually remain self-funded. The bill is imperative for consideration by the National Assembly to fill the gap in the establishment and development of the Council, which is currently affected by absence of a statutory framework. This bill is necessary, timely, and desirable to strengthen the Council to function optimally. May I therefore humbly invite all of you to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. President. I so move.
Thank you, Deputy Leader of the Senate, distinguished Professor Robert Ajay Borofes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, I rise to support the second reading of this bill on the Disaster and Risk Management Council of Nigeria. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the human activities that have increased the emission of carbon is responsible for destruction of ozone layers and consequently climate change. Climate change has become an issue, a political issue, especially which divided the world in not a distant time when Trump was the president of the United States of America. There's a global effort to mitigate the impact of climate change. We have seen many cases of tropical storms, of hurricanes, of typhoons causing a lot of destruction in different parts of the world. In addition to this, we have seen floods, even in Nigeria, occurring in situations where it has not happened before. Mr. President, we have been very fortunate to a great extent in this part of the world that we have not been victims of these disasters that have very devastating effects. But we must not forget that a fault line runs from the southwest of this country to the northeast of this country. And these are potential areas for earthquakes, landslides, and we're also prone to volcanic eruptions. So it is very important for us to have an institutional framework that can take up and also address these issues of risk and disaster management. You will recall, Mr. President, when Hurricane Katrina happened in the US, it was the Nigerian satellite that first of all recorded it and made the images available to the world, which helped a lot in the addressing this hurricane disaster. Therefore, I think it is important that those that will be in charge of this disaster and risk management should be well trained, and also the council must employ adequate technologies that will assist in assessing the disaster and which also will help in the management of this disaster. Mr. President, I'm happy that Nigeria has taken decision on its own to reduce the amount of carbon emission by reducing flaring in the Niger Delta area, because the emission of carbon is one of the factors that leads to climate change. Mr. President, having said this, I rise again to support this bill, and I will plead with my colleagues to also support the second reading of this bill on the Disaster and Risk Management Council of Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is anybody against the bill? Those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish Disaster and Risk Management Council of Nigeria to regulate members of the profession and for matters connected therewith 2021 SB 466, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish Disaster and Risk Management Council of Nigeria to regulate members of the profession and for matters connected there with 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the service order of the day is the second reading of the FCT University of Science and Technology Abashi Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that this bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 27th November 2019. Indeed, this bill was there in the 7th, the 8th, and the 8th Senate. And it went to even up to the president, but because of one clause or the other, it was not signed. These corrections have been made. Therefore, Mr. President, I would like to invite you to invite the distinguished Senator Philip Tanimu Aduda to move the motion for this bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Philip Tanimu Aduda, FCT Galadima Wai.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much. Permit me to move this motion that the bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal Capital Territory FCT University of Science and Technology Abaji for other related matters thereof 2021 SB 2230 be read a second time. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill was read for the first time in these hallowed chambers on the 27th November 2019. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill seeks to establish the FCT University of Technology, Abaji, comprehensive provision for its due management and administration. This bill was passed by the 7th and 8th National Assembly, but was not assented to by the President, hence its reintroduction. The establishment of this institution is informed by the imperative to create more access to university education in view of the large number of qualified candidates who are annually stranded in their failed attempts in gaining admission into the university. The objectives of the university shall be, among others, to encourage the advancement of learning and to hold out to all persons without distinction of race or discrimination, creed, sex, or political conviction the opportunity of acquiring higher and liberal education, provide courses of instruction and other facilities for the pursuit of learning in all its branches, and to make those facilities available on proper terms to such persons as are required to benefit from them, and encourage and promote scholarship and conduct research in restricted fields of learning and human endeavor. The university is therefore to further advance knowledge through research and mature unique technological innovations, entrepreneurship and wealth management in its core area of interest. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the enactment of this bill will help in transforming the technological and educational fortunes in Nigeria in producing the desired manpower and expertise that is yearning for. This university has existed for over 15 years without legal framework. This bill, therefore, is to provide the needed legal and legislative framework for its existence and operation. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, I want to suggest that this bill be read the second time and referred to the Committee of the Whole, considering the fact that this bill was passed by the 7th and 8th National Assembly in accordance with Order 81, Order 81 sub 1 of our standing rules. In line with our Order 77.3, the compendium of the financial implications is hereby attached, as it is not a new university, it is a university that has been existing with structures on ground, and everything that requires for a university to commence its operation is on ground in Abaji as we speak. The only thing we need is this law, which can now enable the university to take off immediately. I urge you all to support this bill for the second reading, and its committal to the Committee of the Whole. Thank you, my distinguished colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Danjumala.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. This is a very good bill brought by the Minority Leader. As far as this bill has been passed for the second time, it was read in the 7th Senate and it was also read in the 8th Senate. As we discussed the other time, we felt a bill that has been passed should be given that opportunity to process than reading it for the third time again in this Senate. I wish my request and the request for the Minority Leader should be given that consideration for it to be passed and to be read for the second time again. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, personally, my understanding of the procedure is you cannot jump from here just to third reading and without suspending the rules and so on. But the fact that it was taken in the 7th or the 8th assembly does not mean that we short circuit the process, but we can fast track it. Because when we come to consideration, it's something that we can just pass quickly. I don't know whether the leader, what do you think?
Well, Mr. President, normally when these bills go through the rigorous processes of public hearing, and they were read also the third time here, and the President makes his observation, normally if those observations come and we reconsider the bill, and take care of some of the observations that are important, and we think maybe some amendments need to be made. And what we need to do, my own advice, is to recommit that bill with the changes that have been made, recommit it to the Committee of the Whole, without having to go through a fresh public hearing, fresh consideration, fresh third reading. I think if we can recommit it to the Committee of the Whole after the corrections have been made, I think this will suffice.
No, I'm not saying it should go through public hearing. We don't need public hearing because we did it. But what I'm saying is you have to go through the second reading. We have to refer it to the committee. The committee doesn't have to do public hearing. The committee simply brings the report within a few days. And when we come in the consideration of the report, because this is something that we did in the past, we can just expedite action. But I don't think you can just jump the procedure as it is.
This issue is actually, when you look into our rules, Rule 86, subsection 2 and subsection 1, 2, and 3 are very germane. And if you have given permission, sir, I will read. The first rule, section 1, says that when a bill has been reported from a committee of the whole Senate, if it shall be ordered to be read the third time forthwith, upon such a day as the Rules and Business Committee may appoint, provided that if a senator gives notice of its intention to move the recommittal of the bill in accordance with the next following paragraph of this rule, a bill may not be read the third time until such a time as the motion for recommittal has been disposed of. Then B, section 2, states that when a bill has been ordered for third reading, any senator who wishes to amend or delete any provision contained in the bill or to introduce any fresh provision may give notice of his intention on order for a third reading being read to move that the bill be recommitted. If such motion be agreed to, the Senate shall resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole immediately or after such a day the Rules Committee may appoint. When the bill has been reported, the Senate shall then proceed with the third reading of the bill unless the Rules and Business Committee decides to postpone this to another day. When a bill has been subjected to a special report from a standing committee, the chairman in charge of the bill may, on notice given, that the bill be recommitted to the standing committee. So there are two types of recommittals. There is recommittal to the committee of the standing committee. Then there is recommittal to the committee of the whole. So after the committee has done its work and brought the thing to the committee of the whole and it receives third reading, you can come for a recommittal of the bill to the committee of the whole. You don't have to go back to the standing committee. Or if the standing committee thinks that there must be some amendment which it wants to consider, then they can raise a motion to recommit the bill back to the standing committee before it comes to a standing committee of the whole for consideration. These are two...
Okay, leader, my understanding is we should be on the side of caution. Because if we start that, every bill that was considered in the 7th or 6th or 8th Senate will just come and then we say we just, and it will be a problem for us. Let's be as thorough but as fast. So we can send it to the committee that is supposed to handle this. The committee will bring its report and then we expedite action. What we are able to do is for that committee to look at everything. Whichever committee is to consider it, is to look at everything and say everything is okay, and then we fast track the consideration rather than jumping, because if we start with this, it will continue and it's going to be a little bit untidy for us, because if we just pass bills without our relevant committees looking at them, we may end up not being thorough. So I will just urge that we send it to the relevant committee, maybe establishment and public service matters, but as soon as they bring, we fast track the consideration.
Mr. President, it depends on the nature of the motion and the view of the Senate. The Senate, I agree with you, our position, that for some of these, in particular those bills that had received or had not been accepted by the President, I think they should go to the committee so that the committee, the wisdom of members of the committee can inform our decisions. But for some, you know, we can either go, take them back to the standing committee to recommit without having to go through public hearing, you know, so that they can go through it and it's more thorough. You know, but for some bills, it gives, the rules give two options. You know, but...
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to go to the option that protects us. Leader, what I'm trying to do is to take the option that protects us, because this second reading, the sponsor of the bill might have done the correction, but the committee or the Senate is not does not know exactly what those corrections were. When we commit it to a committee, the committee will look at those corrections that were said to have been done. If they are okay, they just bring it and we consider it. But if at this point we just bring into the committee of the whole, we might run into some difficulty of not being thorough. That's the point I'm making.
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you, sir. But I think, you know, we should not tie ourselves too much. There are certain bills that may come before us that we take straight to the committee of the whole. But because of the peculiarity of this particular bill, I do agree with you that we need to go back to the committee. But we should not tie ourselves so tight that every kind of consideration of an amendment that we have done to the bill has to go to the committee. After the committee would have completed its work earlier. It's later, after we have come to the third reading, that something has been observed for which we need to make an amendment. Then I think to go back to the committee again will be tautological. So it's better for us to be flexible so that we can be able to, in the nature of a particular bill, to decide by this chamber whether it goes back to the committee for recommittal or directly to the committee of the whole.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, let me, in supporting what the leader has said and also in supporting your the wisdom in which you are taking this matter, when a bill has been read, that's order 81-1, when a bill has been read the second time, it shall stand committed to a standing committee unless the Senate on motion made committed to the committee of the whole Senate. Such motion shall not require notice but must be made immediately after the bill is read a second time and must be proposed by the leader of the Senate. Bills committed to the standing committee shall be allocated to a particular committee by the President of the Senate, whose discretion in this matter is final.
President of the Senate has discretion to agree. He has discretion to agree to take it to the committee of the whole or to refer it back. So the ruling is your ultimate.
Distinguished Senator Ebukule Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, without prejudice to all that has been said and the order that has been cited, I think we should take a uniform position, Mr. President. I've listened to what was read. It's referring to a particular Senate, not the one that is taken in 7th or 8th. I think what you said is very clear. Or anything that comes now in this 9th Senate, or probably even future, of course, at that time they will take their decision. We should still commit it to the respective appropriate committee, but they will be guided that if they will look at all of those things. Why was the bill not assented to? They will check those things. Once they see that all of those things have been cleared, they do not necessarily need to now call for public hearing. So we must take that uniform position, standard position, that whatever bill that comes in this Senate, of course, all that has been read will no longer apply if it was taken in the previous Senate, that is 8th or 7th Senate. They will still have to commit it to the respective committee, appropriate committee, but they don't necessarily have to maybe go for public hearing and all that, but they must still be seen to be doing the work to check and say, okay, we've checked all these things, it is good for third reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leader, I have listened to all the sides of the arguments. I feel, and this is my ruling, I feel that having a committee to look at and confirm the corrections done by the sponsor, because it was reported the president did not assent. Maybe there were some things that were objected to. Only the sponsor of the bill now knows those corrections. When we send it to a committee, the committee will look at those corrections done. If the committee is satisfied, nothing like public hearing. I think what we'll take out is the public hearing, because there was public hearing before. So, but the idea of not sending it to a committee, that is what I think will make the work a little bit not too the committee is like a sieve. It's going to sieve out what the issues are, and we're good to go. So I will go with a position of the Single Senator Ebukule Amosu, that we refer it to a committee, the committee looks at it, no public hearing, and as soon as the committee reports, we fast track the consideration of the report finish. I think we should go that line. So this bill is referred to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters to report back within 2 weeks. Why is the, sorry? Yeah, you are right. You should go to tertiary. The bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund to report back within 2 weeks. Why is the chairman? The vice chairman is not here too. The vice chairman here. So you have 2 weeks. Please. Just look at and you liaise with the sponsor of the bill. Those areas that were corrected. So once you confirm, we'll get the report, please. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the 8th order of the day, the second reading of Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 5th November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Barau Jibrin to move the motion for this bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Barau Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barau Jibrin.
I've just been reminded, please. We didn't read the bill for the second time, but of course I referred it, Zoom we did. So the clerk of the Senate, please.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, University of Science and Technology, Abaji, and for other related matters thereof, 2021, SB 230, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, University of Science and Technology, Abaji, and for other related matters thereof, 2021, second reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund report within 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
The eighth order of the day is the second reading of the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 5th November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Barrow Jibrin to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kaduna. Mr. President, I stand to move in order to be allowed to read the lead debate on the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2021 SB 139. I so move, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, this is a lead debate on the Microbiology Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2021 SB 139. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I take the liberty to lead the debate on a bill for an ask to establish the Microbiology Council of Nigeria to serve as a regulatory body for persons seeking to be members of the council, to as well determine the standards of knowledge and skills to be attained by persons seeking to become microbiologists, to make provision for continuous training and development of members to ensure professionalism and promote corporate governance values. The bill was read the first time in the Senate on Tuesday, 15 November 2019. Microbiology is concerned primarily with a branch of biology that manipulates the structure and functions of macromolecules like a protein and nucleic acids that are essential to life. It concerns itself with understanding the interactions between the various systems of cells, including the interrelationship of DNA, RNA, and protein synthesis, and learning how the interactions are related. At the moment, there's no legal framework that regulates the practice contrary to what is obtainable in many jurisdictions. The bill fills this gap and keeps Nigeria in tune with current trends in the practice of biochemistry and molecular biology. The establishment of the Microbiology Council will not be dependent on federal, state, or local government funding to perform its statutory functions. Considering the huge recurrent and capital expenditure of government as it stands today. Specifically, the following are selected sources of income for the Institute: membership annual subscription fee, induction fees, conferences, seminars, workshops, practicing license fees, grants and donations, loans, publication for scientific and educational journals, etc. Cross-country experience. In America, the institute responsible for microbiology is the American Society of Microbiology. Microbiology, its mission is to advance the science of microbiology through publication of scientific and educational journals, organization of scientific meetings, advocacy, of funding of basic research and education, support of science education at all levels, and promoting the diversity of individuals entering into scientific workshop. In Morocco, there is the Society of Microbiology, which was set up in 1995 with a goal of associating its activities with those of other societies that promote education and research in the field. Similarly, in South Africa, the South African Society for Microbiology also exists. It is worthy to know that all these associations have legal framework. Currently in Nigeria, there is no legal framework that regulates the practice of microbiology, even though there exists the Microbiology Council of Nigeria. The society is not supported by any legal framework, unlike in those jurisdictions like United States of America, and therefore lacks the capacity to regulate the practice of microbiology. The bill is proposed to make the Council a body to acquire all the recognitions, benefits, and technical support needed to make it effective in provision of capacity development services for members in Nigeria. The bill is imperative for consideration by the National Assembly, indeed by this august Senate, to fill the gap in the establishment and development of the Council, which is currently affected by absence of a statutory framework. The bill is necessary, timely, and desirable to strengthen the Council to function optimally. Therefore, Mr. President, distinguished senators, I urge you all to support the expeditious passage of this bill. Mr. President, I so submit. Thank you.
Deputy Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to support the motion of the bill that the Microbiology Council of Nigeria be established. Microbiology is very, very important and has a lot of ramifications. In food industry, microbiology is very important because it's an agent of fermentation, whether we're talking of the brewing industry or in other areas of food industry. Microbiology is very important in medicine, in production of vaccines. In fact, what we experienced recently in the production of vaccines across the world shows that microbiology is very important. And it's unfortunate that here in Nigeria, we cannot boast of producing a vaccine. Microbiology is also important in the area of defense. We do hear of some microorganisms used in warfare. So it is important, Mr. President, the senior colleagues, that we have a registered council, that will have a list of professional microbiologists that Nigeria can call upon at any time when there is a need in a particular expertise. So this council is very important, and it also afford members continuous training in areas of national need. Having said this, Mr. President, the senior colleagues, I rise to support that this bill be read the second time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Those in favor that this will be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Microbiology Council of Nigeria to provide for the control of its membership, promote and foster the practice of microbiology in the Federation, and for other connected matters thereto 2021, SB 139, second read.
A bill for an act to establish the Microbiology Council of Nigeria to provide for the control of its membership, promote and foster the practice of microbiology in the Federation, and for other connected matters thereto 2021, second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the Committee on Establishment and Public Service Matters to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, sorry. The ninth order of the day is the second reading of the Federal Eye Center Ochandamu, Kogi State Establishment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Wednesday, 30th June 2021. Mr. President, we will invite distinguished Senator Jibril Isa to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Isa Jibril.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Isa Jibril, representing Kogi East. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, please permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which seeks to establish the Federal Eye Center, Ochadamu, to take over the staff, assets, and liabilities of the Holy Memorial Hospital, Ochadamu, Kogi State, for the prevention and cure of eye defects and diseases, to establish a board to govern the center and an academic committee to take charge of the center's academic affairs and for related matters. The bill was read for the first time in this Hallowed Chamber on Thursday, 1st of July, 2021. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Kogi East Senatorial District, where the center is proposed to be cited, comprises 9 local government areas: Ankpa, Basa, Dekina, Ibaji, Ida, Igalamela, Adolu, Ofu, Olamaboro, and Omala, with a population of over 2 million. The Holy Memorial Hospital, Ochadamu, which is a missionary hospital, was founded in 1948 in response to the needs of those suffering from leprosy. Subsequently, eye care became an integral part of the hospital due to the prevalence of eye diseases and related complications in the area. The eye care that was introduced into the programs of the hospital is the only eye center in Kogi East, rendering services to patients within the state and neighboring states. However, this hospital is faced with a myriad of challenges such as shortage of ward accommodation, insufficient clinical area, under-equipped theater, and power challenges, underscoring the need for a standby 100 kVA generator and a 500 kVA electric transformer to be connected to national grid. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the centrality of the proposed center to the overall health of the citizens is underscored by a recent study on visual challenges in Kogi State, which found out that 128,000 citizens have severe visual disorders and about 8,500 are blind, a situation attributed to various factors. The study found cataract the commonest cause of severe visual impairment and blindness, being responsible for 45.3% and 43% respectively. Furthermore, glaucoma, which is an optic neuropathy that presents with a characteristic optic disc damage and visual field defect with intraocular pressure as one of the modifiable risk factors, has led to several cases of irreversible blindness in the Senatorial District. This is in addition to other conditions such as corneal scarring and uncorrected refraction errors found to be among the major causes of blindness and visual impairment in the senatorial district. Distinguished colleagues, the proposed center will afford an opportunity for early detection and treatment for eye conditions, including age-related macular degeneration, which is important and cost-effective. Visual screening and eye exams can help detect these eye diseases while they are still treatable, ultimately stopping or avoiding vision loss. This makes establishment of the center indispensable for maximum eye care in the state. It is very important, as experts have advised, that individuals who are 60 years and older should have a complete periodic eye examination with follow-up examinations as indicated by their ophthalmologist. On this note, conditions or routine schedule of eye examinations is necessary to achieve good visual health. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I emphasize here that the structures and necessary facilities for the takeoff of the center are already in place at the current Holy Memorial Hospital, Ochadamu. Consequently, only an upgrade of the facilities will be needed for full specialized operations of the center. The implication is that the financial burden on the government is very light. May I also inform my most distinguished colleagues that the operators and management of the Holy Memorial Hospital, Ochadamu, are in full support of this bill, which is aimed at promoting eye care in the senatorial district and the state generally. I therefore urge Mr. President and my respected colleagues to support the second reading of this bill to facilitate the prevention and treatment of eye disorders, to enhance right to life and personal dignity of the senatorial district and Kogi State generally, as well as some of the neighboring states in Nigeria, as enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Thank you very much, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues.
Distinguished Senator Smart Ademi, former comrade.
Mr. President, I want to thank you that each time you call me, you appreciate that we are still in this struggle. and this struggle is our life. Mr. President, I rise to support this bill as proposed by my friend, my brother, my colleague, Senator Issa Jubrin, for the upgrade of Holy Memorial Hospital to a full-fledged federal eye center. Mr. President, there is no effort that is too small to be ignored when you talk about providing health care delivery in all facets for our people, for our nation. More so, Mr. President, at this time when we're having serious challenges confronting our economy. In time past, billions of naira have gone into health tourism. Today, we are faced with the reality of looking inward to provide healthcare delivery in order to minimize the thousands of privileged Nigerians that troop out virtually monthly to seek for medical care. I hold the view, Mr. President, that the bill that my brother is sponsoring is for the benefit of our nation, of our people. I'm not in doubt that this bill will receive the support of all of us for the fact that it will help those who are likely to face the challenges of good eyesight to have a place where they can be adequately treated and thereby saving our nation from the limited foreign exchange earnings of our nation to other nations of the world. But I equally hold the view, Mr. President, that upgrading this center to a full-fledged eye hospital will equally be creating job opportunities for quite a number of highly trained and educated medical personnel. Bearing in mind, Mr. President, the ever-increasing number of tertiary institutions, especially universities and other institutions for the training of medical personnel, we must be looking ahead as to where such trained hands will work. I saddened my heart, Mr. President, some weeks back when I saw on one of the clips.
You can round up. Please round up.
My brother, my colleague, Senator Isa Jumin.
Those in favor that this will be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act established the Pero Eye Center of Chandramu, Kogi State, to take over staff, assets and liabilities of the Holy Memorial Hospital for the prevention and cure of eye defects and diseases, and to establish a board to govern the center and an academic committee to take charge of the center's academic affairs and for related matters 2021 SB 760, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Federal Eye Center or Chandamu, Kogi State, to take over staff, assets and liabilities of the Holy Memorial Hospital for the prevention and cure of eye defects and diseases, and to establish a board to govern the center and an academic committee to take charge of the center's academic affairs and for related matters 2021 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Health to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the 10th order of the day is the second reading of Legal Practitioners Act, Cap L11, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Re-enactment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Wednesday, 29 September 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele.
Thank you so much, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I am Michael Opeyemi Bamidele and I represent Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President and our distinguished colleagues, I thank you for this opportunity and privilege to lead the debate on the general principles of the bill for an act to repeal the Legal Practitioners Act, Cap L11, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004. You may recall that this bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on 29 September 2021. Objective, justification, and general principles of the bill. In a nutshell, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the bill seeks to repeal the Legal Practitioners Act, Cap L11, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the Legal Practitioners Act 2021 for proper regulation and reform of the legal profession in this country. The objectives of the bill, among others, are as follows. 1, to confer statutory responsibility on the body of benchers, being the body of legal practitioners of the highest distinction in the legal profession in Nigeria, saddled with the primary responsibility of formal call to the Nigerian bar of persons desirous of becoming lawyers, and to further strengthen its disciplinary control over erring lawyers through the creation of more disciplinary committees. 2, to further strengthen and streamline the effective regulation of the legal profession, as well as empower the bureaucracy of the body of benchers, which hitherto was merely playing the role of the body's secretariat. One of the major purposes of this bill is for body of benchers to carry out reforms that will have a far-reaching effect on the legal profession and Nigerians who are in their quest for justice. The provisions of the bill are structured in a way and manner that meet the required standards and modern-day development in the legal profession. This is against the backdrop of the fact that some of the provisions of the extant Act have become obsolete and need to be updated in order to bring them in line with international best practices. For the purpose of emphasis, it should be stated that in the 7th and 8th National Assembly, several attempts were made in order to update the provisions of the extant Act to bring it into conformity with modern realities. However, these attempts did not yield the desired result. As such, stakeholders from both the bar and the bench, through a series of consultative and interactive sessions, came up with this harmonized bill, which is before us today for deliberation. In conclusion, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the passage of this bill will no doubt strengthen the legal profession and reposition it to meet the challenges of the 21st century in line with global best practice standards and convention. On this note, I wish to appeal to the Senate to give expeditious passage to this bill because of its laudable provisions and its relevance to the socio-economic development of this country. Finally, I wish to state that in line with the requirement and compliance with Order 77 sub 3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2015 as amended, this bill has no financial implication and its passage will not pose additional financial burden on the federal government as the body of benchers is already an existing body. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I thank you.
Distinguished Senator Surajuddin Ajibola Basiru, Ocean Central.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic. I'm Dr. Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru. I represent Osun Central Senatorial District. I stand to support the second reading of this very important bill. And I will say that the objectives, justifications, and the necessity of the bill have been well articulated. And I also say that the lacuna in the existing law will definitely be filled in this regard. And I speak as somebody who has also sat on the body of venture, and I know the very important and strategic role the body of venture can play when properly statutorily empowered in repositioning legal practice in Nigeria. So I join Distinguished Senator Michael Okwemi Bamidele to urge distinguished colleagues to give expeditious passage of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Legal Practitioners Act Cap L11, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and for related matters therewith 2021, SB 815, second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Legal Practitioners Act Cap L11, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and for other related matters therewith 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Have you done this? Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the 11th order of the day is the second reading of the Legal Education Consolidation Act, Cap L10, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Amendment Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 5th October 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Smart Ademi to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Smart Ademi, Kogi West.
Thank you, Didi. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it's my pleasure to present the lead debate
on the bill for an act to amend the Legal Education Consolidation Act by establishing campuses for the Nigerian law schools and other related matters. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which seeks to amend the Legal Education Consolidation, etc. Act by establishing the campuses of the Nigerian Law School and for other related matters. It should be noted, Mr. President, that the Nigerian Law School was established in Lagos under the Legal Education Act 1962, which is now Legal Education Consolidation Act, CAP L10 Laws of the Federation 2000.
Distinguished Smart Ademi, this your lead debate is too much. It's too big. I don't know whether you want to. Yeah, you can look at those. You can jump some because we are not extending time. Yeah.
Of the inability of, in view of the immediate disaster in our legal industry, Mr. President, this amendment to the Nigeria Council of Legal Education is to encourage the Federal Council of Legal Education to encourage the federal government of Nigeria to increase the number of campuses of the Nigerian Law School to 12 at the minimum by establishing additional one each in the 6 geopolitical zones of the Federation. Proposed campuses of the Nigerian Law School and their location, Mr. President, are as follows. For North Central, Buhari Law School Campus, Abuja; Kaba Law School Campus, Kogi State for North Central; Northeast, Yola Law School existing, and we are proposing Maiduguri Law School in Borno State. For Northwest, Mr. President, Kano Law School, Kano; Arugungu Law School Campus, Kebbi; Southeast, Enugu Law School Campus, Enugu; Okija Law School Campus, Anambra; South, Yenegua Law School Campus by
Okija. The famous Okija, where the shrine is.
Southwest, Mr. President, we have Lagos Law School in Lagos and Ilawe Law School Campus, Ekiti. I therefore urge Mr. President and my respected colleagues to support this bill so as to rescue the future of Nigerian youths, the intending lawyers, to save parents for the burden of prolonged dependency, and to also reposition the Nigerian Law School for optimal service delivery. Mr. President, I so submit.
Senator Professor Sandiono.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Senator Sandiono, Cross River Central. Mr. President, I think the basic idea and philosophy of this bill makes sense. Like Senator Adeyemi said, the number of students that are graduating from universities that offer law as a course are increasing every day, and there is need to expand these law schools or increase these law schools in order to expand the opportunities they have. But I think that we should not begin to propose where this institution should be established. As I speak, Mr. President, I have it in good authority, for instance, that while the proposal for the South-South indicates a recommendation for the establishment of a campus in Bayelsa and Delta, Bayelsa already has a functioning campus. And the next one that is being developed now and has been approved by the Council of Legal Education is in Rivers State. So, yeah, the basic idea is beautiful, but the proposals as to where this institution should be, it should be left to the Council of Legal Education. Secondly, Mr. President, I think we just need to add by way of caution that while this idea is beautiful, we should be careful so that we don't over-proliferate. Because at that level, quality is very important. I support this bill, Mr. President.
DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Uvi Omo Agege, Delta Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to support this lead debate for a bill for an act to amend the Legal Education Act by establishing these additional campuses for the Nigerian Law School. Mr. President, first, I really want to commend Senator Smart Adeyemi for this initiative. Mr. President, for those of us who are members of the legal profession, most especially those of us who have been in these chambers for a very long time, I'm a little bit embarrassed that we didn't pick on this early and brought up this initiative. That it took Senator Smart Adeyemi, who is just about to join us in the legal profession, to identify this serious challenge that legal education is facing in the country.
In what capacity is he joining you? Okay.
President, this bill could not have come at a better time. Mr. President, when I went to the Nigerian Law School, at that time, there was only the Lagos campus of the Nigerian Law School. And as a young man who graduated from the Law Faculty, University of Benin, to go into Lagos at that time to attend the law school, we went through a lot of challenges, Mr. President. Challenges of education, challenges of accommodation, both in the school itself and accommodation. But Mr. President, while the law school experience itself was a good one, memorable one, we had those challenges we had to deal with. That was why some of us were very happy years after we left the law school. The leadership, the management of the Council of Legal Education took initiative to expand the law school by setting up additional campuses. Mr. President, even with those campuses already established, it is still not enough. Mr. President, we feel very embarrassed as representatives of the people to be receiving calls from parents or constituents.
DSP, because we are running out of time, I think you may have to round up. We have only 2 minutes to finish everything.
Support this bill in principle, and I also support it with respect to the locations that have been canvassed. We can never have too many of that. Thank you for the...
Well, distinguished colleagues, we have run out of time. We can't take any more contributions. So those in favor that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Legal Education Consolidation, etc. Act Cap L10, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to make provision for the establishment of additional campuses for the Nigerian Law School and for other related matters, 2021 SB 820, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Legal Education Consolidation (ETC) Act Cap L10, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to make provision for the establishment of additional campuses for the Nigerian Law School and for other related matters, 2021, second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate will stand down the consideration of the remaining items.
My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for this distinguished chamber to stand down the consideration of all other items on our agenda today to another legislative day. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that will stand down all other items on the order paper. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate stands down the remaining items on the order paper till another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. You move for adjournment.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion that this Senate do adjourn to tomorrow, 7th October 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt.
Minority Leader. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that this Senate now do adjourn to the 7th of October at 10 a.m. prompt. As so second.
Distinguished colleagues, let me remind us that tomorrow, the 7th day of October, Mr. President will be addressing the joint sitting of the National Assembly at 12 noon. 12 noon, not 2 p.m. And therefore, we start sitting here at 10 a.m. and we leave the chamber at 11:30 for the chamber of the House of Representatives by the grace of God. Those in favor of the motion that this Senate stands adjourned till tomorrow, the 7th day of October 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow, 7th day of October 2021 at 10 a.m. prompt.